Okay, it's
Okay.
got it.
We're on.
Oh, it worked. Okay, have a good one.
Well, welcome everyone. Guess what? There's all kinds of Jupiter and equinox and autumn, and Facebook was pushing all the Indians to the side and they wouldn't let us do nothing. Anyway, we said boom, and all our ancestors helped. Welcome to the Native Wellness Institute. we welcome you to our Wellness Wednesday. Every Wednesday, Jean Tagaban and I are on, and so if you've just joined us, Nistu Nidanico Makoyo Sequoia, I'm coming from the Blackfoot Nation, and we have some stuff to share with you about grief and loss and healing. Gene, what do you got to say, brother?
Well, it's good to be on. Holy, just like you said, man. There's some tricksters out there trying to messing with our Zoom thing here. That's why maybe I'm wearing Bigfoot today. I think that's why it's like,
Hey. I like it.
But it's really good to be here just for this moment, for this time, and just to share a few things here about grief and healing, and I mean, we've lost several, and we'll get into it. Let me I'm just going to sing a song here, get us kicked off here, and we'll start talking about that. Hide a song for our ancestors, acknowledge of our ancestors and everything that they've done for us. And as we talk about grief and loss here, we have many of our loved ones who are gone to be with those ancestors, and as we're left here, sometimes, I mean, it can be hard, it can be hurtful, it can be sad, it could be lonely, all kinds of things coming up. We can even have celebration, ceremony, joyous at the same time, and during all those times. But we're just going to share with you a few things. What do you think, Theda?
Sure. I just crossed the Canadian border back into the United States, and I was praying for Eugene, because I was just like praying for NWI and just praying for, all of our people up there. And as I was crossing, I was just saying, Creator, thank you for these feelings. I was saying, Creator, thank you for these feelings. And we're inviting, our audience to feel. And I guess that's what this power hour is about, is grief and loss and healing. And so I just started crying, and I guess I'm crying again because what I've learned, Gene, is not to shut it off.
Yeah.
Not to stuff it, and not to push it away. And it hurts. It like hurts. It's like, it's weird. It's like this part of my body feels like it aches. But like what you were saying, Gene, is when they're the ancestors. So I was just, calling out. I mean, I think like maybe you're calling out, to your dad. I was just like calling out to Shasheen, because she did so much with helping a lot of women deal with cancer, and some leaving and some staying, and then I have a cousin that we're burying today. So when I get off here, I'm going to join my mom, because my mom's sitting in the church saving a place for me. and I just gonna go and I guess cry some more with my mom and be with my relatives. But I was calling out to, I was saying Jody, and I think we can call out, to our ancestors to help us as we're feeling and healing. We're calling this healing, healing, healing. And it's been interesting, Gene. And I mean, thank you for the song. Whenever you sing, Gene, it just feels like it's calming. So I'll tell a story and then I'll boot it back to you. When I got across the border and I knew I was coming into town, I was just saying, it's too bad to be, what can I do to like clean off and show up into a new space? So creator, the ancestor said, go jump in the lake. I swear, Gene. So then I went home and took off everything and unbraided my hair. And it was a little bit chilly, but it's kind of like that kind that just like I sang a calling song and I just went, wow, like what in the water. And I'm in the 4 directions, like, wow, like, but then by the 4th time, then I just started praying to the ancestors and not just, for myself, for my people, for us at NWI, for all of those that listen to the Power Hour, for I was just saying, we need some help, and then it just got calm. The water just got calm. I just felt calm. And then I came to this realization that all I got to do is this 24 hours and it'll be okay. So I was like, yeah, me and Gene get to be on the Power Hour because I always look forward to that. So I just started listening, like making a gratitude list. That, boy, it's been 2 years and 8 months since I could cross the border. So I was just making a gratitude list to all my relatives I seen. And it was our 16th annual missing and murdered. It's our sisterhood candlelight vigil. And there was all these children that came. And everybody had candles last night. And we walked from City Hall down to Galt Gardens. And then we heard families talk about their healing, and we cried. We all cried together and we were healing and then we were hugging. But that hugging was the best part. I don't know. The hugging, like when you're just hugging somebody and you haven't seen them in a long time. We were just appreciating being alive and that just making a gratitude list. And so when I was in the water, I just started saying, simple things like, oh, man, I'm grateful that there's good air to breathe. Like, oh, I'm so grateful that this water is here. And, just like making that gratitude list. So I guess that's some of my story. So what you thinking, Gene?
Yeah, just like you were saying, those hugs, and there's the acronym for hugs that was taught to me, helping us grow spiritually, helping us spiritually, getting those hugs. And we're talking about grief and healing. We have had a lot of loss, and those griefs can be death of a loved one, loss of our health, loss of our jobs, miscarriages, retirements, many forms of grief, but oftentimes at the loss of a pet, that's a family member. So, but oftentimes when we talk about that, in the front of our mind is the loss of a loved one. And like you were saying there, Theda, getting together with others, sharing those tears and not holding it back. And especially us men, we hold things back, and we hold things in, trying to have that tough exterior. But on the inside, on the outside, we're looking like, okay, holding it together, we're tough, we're strong and all that. But on the inside, there's like almost a storm going on at times, and so it's just to allow it to come out in a good way, and sometimes it's those tears, sometimes it's talking it out with other people. Sometimes we get angry too, but to express that anger in a good way, as opposed to throwing it off on somebody else. Um, yeah, and so and everyone deals with their grief a little differently too. Like my wife Ruby, we both, she is quiet about her grief. She can keep it quiet, only share with maybe a few handful of people. Where we talked about this, where I could be very public with my grief, and talking about it and sharing it with that. And that's okay. And that's totally okay. And sometimes she would just want to hang out with the dogs and hold the dogs and cuddle with the dogs, which is great too. And I'm out there, I'm talking it with the world. I'm talking with people like I'm here on the Power Hour talking about my grief, and um, but you talked about Shasheen, all she did, but part of that too is like, for instance, telling and talking about those stories, and talking about them, sharing those stories. Um, sure, I recently lost my father, probably a couple months, 2.5 months ago, and I think about him daily, every day. Sometimes the first thing in the morning, I think about my pop, and it's just, and how long is this going to last? Maybe, and hopefully it'll last for the rest of my life, to be able to think about my dad and, that gratitude. I'm grateful that my pops was, he's a quiet man, stern man. He had his stuff, but he always expressed the love, and I remember that about him. But I want to share something too. You were talking about Shasheen. Recently in Indian country, we've lost a couple icons, giants in Indian country. One of them is Shasheen Littlefeather, you know, and the other one was a friend of mine, teacher of mine, mentor, and I got, and again, mostly a friend of mine, Kevin Locke, hoop dancer, Lakota hoop dancer, storyteller, flute player, traveled around the world bringing, ambassador for the culture, ambassador for human beings, using his culture and stuff. And um, I haven't really posted anything online about it too, because when I heard about that, it's a shock. It was shocking news to me because I didn't expect it. My father, in that grief, I expected it to come because he was very ill. And so it was like that anticipatory grief was on its way. It was coming, until it finally knocked on the door. When something shocking, a sudden death, or passing of somebody, that's when grief just comes like just pounding on the door, almost breaking it down, say, here I am, and that's it's shocking, and that's how it was with me and the loss of Kevin, and I got to travel with him, perform with him, throughout several, many years, and so I just want to my hands up to, his family, his people, and his and his belief systems as well. And it's one of those things too, I got to tell you, is that to me, Kevin would seem to be doing everything right, you know, eating right, living right, dancing, talking about the culture, and then suddenly he's gone. And gosh, it kind of put me on a tilt a little bit, because if someone like that, suddenly it's like it's is taken or gone. It's like, here I am. I'm trying to, he was a role model for me. But at the same time, it's like, I I my gratitude towards him, and at the same time, creator, I gotta trust creator, there's that faith. And what is our faith? When I say our faith, what do we believe in? What are our values? And sometimes that's what we have to fall on. Sometimes fall on. And like even our, you know, our faith and our values with those who we hang out with the Native Wellness Institute. For instance, if I fall, I know Theda, Jeline, uh, uh, Thosh, Levina, my Native Wellness family, Shailene, I know there's a net there for someone to catch me, and so it's, um, Yeah, there's those, there's that too, you know. It's I was just, you know, I put my hands up to, you know, talking about that. You know, an awesome story I want to share with you about Kevin Long.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
We traveled to China together, and we went to the Great Wall of China.
Mm.
And I was with Kevin and Doug Goodfeather. And so we walked on the Great Wall, but we wanted to walk beyond where all the tourists were, where the wall was crumbling back to the earth, where you could
Mm.
hardly see the wall, where they don't construct it anymore because they want the tourists, everyone with the nice wall, but to the place where everything is just is going back into the earth. We walked far enough where we found that place, and then we got out there. And so we all sang some songs, shared some food, offerings, tobacco, you know, and all that, made that offerings to ancestors. And then on the way back, suddenly as we're walking back, hundreds and hundreds of lizards came out. They're running back and forth, standing on the side, all these lizards that were not, we didn't see them on the way there, but on the way back out, after we sang the songs, after we offered the food, after we offered the tobaccos, made those acknowledgments, you know, they all came out.
Mm.
And so we had that experience at the Great Wall of China. And so that tells me the power of our ceremonies, the power of our belief systems, the power of that acknowledgement of, you know, our ways. And it just validated those as I'm walking there with Doug Goodfeather and Kevin Locke, who has since passed on. And so
Mm-hmm.
guys, when we get to that point, you know, go to our ceremonies, go to our songs, our traditions, because those were in place. Our ancestors had, they had thousands and thousands of years to go through that process.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a foundation that has helped me. But that was an amazing story with Kevin. But that's just, you know, you know, it's almost an expectation when I was with him, those things.
Uh-huh. You know, it's good though. No, thank you, Gene, because I think part of our faith and part of our heart aching is to tell their stories. And just like what you were saying, you know, I was just visualizing you guys, and I remember when you had showed us pictures and stuff, is I was visualizing, because I think that part of faith is someone's legacy.
Yeah.
and and you said that, even, you know, that he taught you, you were co-conspirators in the spiritual realm, you know. And I think of that way, I mean, and I guess you know, on my heart, even though it hurts, because grief is the grief is always as big as the love, you know. And when we love so much, and so that was a thought, you know, Gene, as I was saying prayers before we were getting on, I just thought, oh my God, look at how much love we all have. Look at how much love we had. And just being great, part of our faith, just being grateful for that, you know, like if we didn't love anyone, or we didn't care, if we were just, you know, narcissistic, so and so, you know, all of those things that we've learned during this pandemic, if we didn't love so much, we wouldn't feel these things. And, you know, so maybe I'll say something about legacy and faith. When I was, because yesterday, for when I got across the border, you know, because here's Canada and half my people are there, and here's Montana, and we couldn't get across for ceremony, so there was a grief. And so I didn't even drive that way. But when I got across, and then I got to where I was going to park my truck, I parked right next to this grandma.
Mm.
And, you know, and she was a grandma, and she had her little poster of her granddaughter that was, you know, to be listed as murdered in 1974. And she had a picture of her, and then the grandma gets out, and we were trying to park somewhere, you know, because we have to walk in this vigil. And it's just that's a ceremony, that's the faith, walking in that. And we had this young group, Gene, you would have loved them. They were all little girls, and some young women, and they were called the White Buffalo Drum Group, and they all had hand drums. they and they were so darn cute. I mean, they just like sang us as we walked down the street. But this grandma, and we just, and I didn't know her, but I rolled down, I got out of my car and started talking to her, and she was so soft hearted. She was so genuine. She was just, it's kind of, like you just want to hug her. She was everybody's, but here she had sewn a red ribbon skirt to help with the ceremony. And she got out, and then I go, Grandma, would it be okay if I took a picture of you and your granddaughter? She goes, no, that's why we made the sign, because her other granddaughter had made the sign. And so she had the sign, the picture, it was drawn, it was really good artistic work. It was surrounded by red, because everyone was wearing red yesterday for missing and murdered. And then she got out, and then, and then she put on, she had her pants on. She put her ribbon skirt on. And so me and her, and I'm just we were just like two grandmas or two old ladies, and together, and getting ready for our walk. But when I was looking at her, I was just thinking, you know what? That's what all our ancestors are doing over there on the other side. They're just peaceful and calm. The light, everything is good. And then I think about, so I imagine this, Jean, that they look back to us. They look back and they love us so much that they look down upon us, and they try to help us. But we got to ask them. Like, I don't think they can help us. Like, if we're just like sitting around saying, oh, son of a beeswax, or whatever all those other choice words are, god damn it, if we're doing that, we're not asking our ancestors for help. And I think they can't help us unless we say, ancestors, Akita Biwa, no Gaikimokit, no Gaspomokit, pity me, help me. And so one of the things I think that helps us heal is just to stay as often as possible. It's like, you singing all the time. One of the things, Jean, I just got to say it because we're on here, is when we were together last week on Bainbridge, and when Raven, when you jumped in the Raven suit and you just came, when you snuck in on that birthday song. So here we are celebrating everyone's birthday in October and singing. And then the high school students from Suquamish come in, and then the high school students have their own Indian happy birthday. And then I kind of saw you, how like the corner of my eye, I go, where's he going? The next thing, Raven comes dancing in, Raven singing happy birthday. So I watched that this morning. I watched that, and I was just, I guess, seeing the ceremony, like you said, it's the ceremony, it's the faith. And I, even now, I think just being raw with our feelings, and that's how I feel, is just raw, because it's okay, because I'm just going to surround myself with my relatives. And I see all of those who, thank you for, believing in the power hour this past 2.5 years. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for writing. Thank you for requesting, because Gina and I, it's interesting, I think we're doing the best we can just with what we know, and so as we're doing the best we can here in Blackfoot country, we call it igakima, try hard. And so then I'll say something, and then I'll shift to you, is in trying hard, I think it's not good to isolate. I think it's not good to hide. I think it's not good to shrink back. There's a part of grief that's, I think it's just good to go out and be amongst those who love you. And even if it isn't people, and we know, go out, hug a tree, go out, lay on the ground, Go out, jump in the water, go out. Like even when I'm at my mom's house, and when the dog across the way is getting older, and I saw him come across, he always comes over to my truck. So I took time to let him sit by me and pet him and tell him. It's almost like that dog knew. That dog just walked towards me, and I know animals know, so I just petted him and I go, thank you, thank you. We're gonna be doing a thing on grief. Thank you. And I was just petting him, and then he just kind of looks at me like says, uh-huh. You know, when dogs look at you like, uh-huh. So I was like, talking dog, you know, gee, just talking dog, coming here and just getting ready to. So what you thinking?
You know, part of that too is finding those opportunities. Like you said that, you know, when those kids were singing that and doing that song, the happy birthday song, um, but it was just opportunities present themselves. And so I saw an opportunity to come out and celebrate with them and honor those who were having their birthdays, you know, and am I grieving? And yes, I am grieving again, the loss of many of our peoples. And last week I did this thing. I talked about, you know, we talked about the 7 generations, but also the previous seven generations too. All those generations, we carry their grief with us. So what is
Mhm.
it that I need to do today, even to heal that grief that I carry, heal the grief that I almost inherited or stepped into, you know, and what do I need to do? And so finding those opportunities to express and taking it. And at the same time, since my dad's passing, I ended up getting COVID, and I was really very ill, had a high temperature, high fever, and
Mm.
even with the it's been lingering for me. So I've been resting a lot, but I think that's part of it as well. Recognizing, okay, I need to rest, because if I didn't, I'd be out there. I think I would probably be overdoing it. And so my system, so taking that opportunity to rest as well.
Mm.
And, you know, and even not only because the rest for myself too is um just to, it's okay to think about that stuff. It's okay to think about the good stories, you know, the love that's there, but also it hurts. Grief hurts. It just
Mhm.
does, you know, and you just feel like an emptiness right here, and just like boom. I just talked with a young lady the other day. She just recently lost her father last week, and she says, you know, she was like saying it comes in waves. It just comes in waves. So excuse me sometimes when it just comes in waves. And I remember a lot the loss of my cousin about 10 years ago. And it just I could be standing at the supermarket and then see something, and then all of a sudden I would just tears would just start coming because
Mhm.
just in that grief. And I allowed it. I just, even if I'm at the supermarket, i'll just I'll just allow it, you know, and it's healthy, it's okay, you know. And
Mhm.
when I see somebody else just crying or weeping like that, I just send them prayers. I say, hey, you know, you know, just send them that love, send them that prayers. And I know so many people out there are sending me those prayers as well, and that love, you
Mhm.
know. And so it's that's what I love about Indian country, you know, and that we pray for each other. And we need to do that. I love that because we pray for each other because we got family. We are family, you know, and to all those peoples out there, we see the Lakota who are having hard times, or the Dene, or the, you know, or Seminole, Seminole brothers and sisters or relatives over there in Florida and such, you know. I'm praying for them as well, because what
Mhm.
they went through, or it's still going through with the recovery and everything, you know. Winter's coming up, and and our relatives over in Michigan, up in the First Nations people up there. Sometimes winters can be really hard. And so it's like, so it's just know that, you know what, relatives out there, somebody is praying for you and
Mm-hmm.
you know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
their prayers, they're praying for you. And not just general, but specifically, they're like praying for you out there. And that really gives me faith. Now that strong faith too.
Mm-hmm.
That and I'm gonna say it this way, that Indian faith, that Indian faith, that family native faith, that our traditional way faith, our cultural way faith. You know, that's the faith that I'm referring to as well. Some of you may have this, you know, another idea of that, but that's okay. But for myself, that's what I'm referring to. That
Mm-hmm.
faith, you know, and that, you know, I have 3 dogs too. That dog love faith, man.
Yeah.
That's personal dog love faith, man. I mean, that's like that as well. You know?
Hey, hey, well, Gene, you have to tell your dogs the story. One of what's helping me is, I had giveaway, and one of Ocon Iron Pipes, he has this really high priced igloo that he used to crawl into it because he lived outside most of his life. And so yesterday in our neighborhood on the highway there, people just put out stuff that's free. So anyway, I put out his expensive igloo and a couple of his cushions, and I just wrote on it, Ocon Iron Pipes gift. So Ocon is like a giveaway, and just left it there. I thought, well, when I drive back home, someone who has a new dog or someone who has a dog and needs the igloo because winter is coming, and I don't know who's going to get it. There's something about giving away and you don't know who gets it, but it's just like gifted out there. So maybe, a lot of in our grief, just giving things away, that giveaway is so good feeling, in their legacy, whatever, in our boy up here, people giving away all their horses, giving away their star blankets, giving away, but I think I want to say sometimes the giveaway can be your presence, just being present. Because I noticed, last evening, we would just grab hands because when we were walking, Tanya Crosschild, who I hadn't seen, in 2 years and 8 months, we just grabbed each other's hands. So it's just your presence. So sometimes, you don't even have to say anything. And if you know someone or you need it, it's just go and grab their hand and then think about, the giveaway in words, because the Motoki Buffalo Women's Society, I sat next to her, and everybody that got up and talked, she would say, "Good job. Wow. Thank you." And then she turns to me and she goes, "You know what? I've been a teacher all my life. All I can give is encouraging words." I go, I'm the same way. I want to go, "You're worthy, you're worthy. We love you. Oh God, what good words." We were both laughing, and I go, it's okay to be like that. Just give everybody encouraging words. So here's 2 grandmas, so think about that, and be kind, give good words, gift giving, with the things that you say to each other, and have forgiveness. Like there was one of my we call them scratchy relatives, where they're always kind of complaining and miserable. But when I saw this relative, I just we're already like speeches, and I grabbed her grabbed her and made that touch, and I just through my fingers, and I just wanted to put love. And then I just been praying for her, like that things go good, that she has a long, healthy life, that she has prosperity. But just that touch was forgiveness.
Mm.
You know what? There was like when we touched like that, because I, and with a sincere heart, I just want good things for her. I just want her to have a good life. So when you touch like that, I think it's like spirit to spirit. When you touch like that, spirit knows. Spirit knows, and it almost like all the whatever is held the wounds, because we always say hurt people, but wounded people go out and wound. But I think when we touch like that and it's a sincere heart, that the wound gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and it eventually heals, and then all of a sudden you just say, why were we mad at each other? why, why can't we just like start over? Sometimes they say, can we press the reset button? Because I sure do love you. And I don't want to be, so like, I think just going around telling our relatives, let's start over, let's reset, and let's go on. But Gene, I got to go join my mom, because I did make a promise to her that she's holding a place in the church for me right now. So I think
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Kitakito Matsuno, and I'll see you later. We always say we'll see you later. We never say goodbye. But I'll let you finish up, and
I'll just
we'll
finish up here too. Yeah,
okay.
it's always good to hear you, Theta, because I know I need to leave here really soon too. We got to a late start, but thanks for everybody who's come on, who's responded. Tell your mom, give her my love, give her our love, and our love walks with you as well, and so Ganachish Theta, Ganachish, and
So
until
tune in every Wednesday, Wellness Wednesday, and me and Gene are making a commitment to. We'll get on.
one way or another, we'll figure it out. Today.
So Native Wellness Institute will be here every Wednesday at noon Pacific time and 1 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. But we're just on talking about healing and the teachings of our ancestors. So we really love all of you. Kitsikakkomen. So I'm gonna sign off, Gene. Love
Okay.
you.
I love you. Much love. And so as I'm on here right now, and we're just gonna start coming to a close right now too. I'm just looking at some of your chats on here and responses, and thank you so much for coming in, tuning on, and to share some of these things with I was talking to somebody too about sharing with our younger generations. We may think that they're not listening or they're not hearing us, but that's how I was too. You know, but I was listening. I was paying attention. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time for me for us who we are to like, oh, just suddenly walking down the street and just go, oh, I got it now. Or maybe they're just finally want to stop drinking, and they go, or doing drugs, they go, oh, okay, I got it now. And about forgiveness as well. And I was taught that um you know oftentimes that forgiveness, when we just pursue forgiveness, that's all if we're focused on it, and we forget about all the healing that we need to do, the wellness, going outside, everything's about forgiveness. But if we put forgiveness off to the side and just pursue our healing, our wellness, our health, suddenly forgiveness will just show up. It'll show up, and so that's kind of how I kind of see forgiveness. But today we're with the Native Wellness Institute. We're talking about healing, grief, and healing, and I know we're all carrying a lot of grief. So I want to just encourage you just to, if you need to laugh, then laugh. If you need to cry, then cry. Go out there and just, if that wind is blowing, allow the wind to blow, bless you, cleanse you, or the sunshine. I heard this thing this morning about Tom Porter was talking about the sun is the fingers and the arms of our Creator. And so when you're like out there, and just allow that sunrise, or the sun just to embrace you and to hold you and to love you. And that is the fingers and the arms of the Creator, the sun. Even here in the Pacific Northwest, allow that rain just to fall on you, just to take a moment. I love our birds in our backyard, and our birds will sing, and just taking that in. The hummingbirds, we have hummingbirds back there, love them. It's coming to that new season, the transition of the season. But just take these opportunities, to 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 do it. It's an opportunity to cleanse ourselves and do a little bit of healing. Do a little bit of healing, a little bit at a time. I'm not going to say just go out there and just go, just boom. Just take a little bit of time, little steps, little steps. That's all it takes. So with that, I want to say thank you for your attention. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your response. We'll be back here next week with the Native Wellness Institute, Wellness Wednesdays, and all of you out there, just, we're praying for you. I know you're praying for us, praying for me. Prayers are out there. Just drop some tobacco and food and just send some prayers out there for those who are hurting, those who need that healing, that love, those hugs. So with that, gonna chish, yuk ewe haya de, gonna chish, blessings. Until next time.